Hey everybody, this is Joric. Welcome back. Hope you're doing great wherever you are in the world. Today I want to talk a little bit about a handful of immigrants that we met in Portugal that really were dedicated to integrating. And I want to tell you some of their stories because I think it will help paint a picture for you of, I'll explain what they did, how they went about it, and if this speaks to you as far as if you are going to be moving to Portugal and you're committed that you come, heck or high water, you're staying there regardless of what changes with, nationality policies, citizenship, you name it. But I want to tell you, this was their experience, and this may help people, decide on whether they are really committed to being there, or if it's just going to be, we'll try it out for a year or two and then maybe go someplace else. And I promised I would not use their names because they did not want to be identified. But there were a handful of people right now, as I'm looking here, 7 people, 3 from the US, 3 from the UK, and 1 person from Canada. And they all kind of have a similar story. They were learning the language, which that can be a bone of contention for people. And I will say, and I believe, I don't know the last of the username, but Teddy Davis is someone that, thank you so much for commenting on my videos, mentions often that, learning the lingo, learning the language, don't have to be native, don't have to be fluent, but conversational helps on the journey. Other people say it doesn't. Our experience, even though I'm terrible at Portuguese, having some semblance of being able to talk to my neighbors, even when it's broken and they were kind of making fun of me of my pronunciation or lack of, was helpful. And it had helped kind of build some relationships. But all of these people, they were focused on one thing, not so much the language, although that was one of their goals. It was to get to A2, which was part of citizenship, permanent residency, but they wanted to get into the Bs. And what I mean by that is, if you're grading on just knowing little things, you're in the A area, or phrases and simple sentences, and comprehension, and B's a little more, I think, intermediate. I think the C level, don't quote me on this, I think is more fluent and you really know Portuguese, or in this case, European Portuguese. But they wanted community involvement. They found and they felt like if they got into something and started working directly with Portuguese people, that would give them a better level of satisfaction. They might have an opportunity to integrate a little better, maybe have a couple of friends that are more than just, meet up and watch the football game friends. And in these cases, so I had this conversation, a conference call, a Zoom call, all of them kind of moved pre-pandemic, 2018 to 2020, so I guess beginning of pandemic, and they all got involved with churches and community groups related to churches in and around Portugal, in Braga, in Lisbon, and then Évora. And in those cases where they were forced in some cases to integrate because from a language perspective, because the people didn't speak English or French. One case, a couple of these people also speak French. So they were forced to learn, which was trial by fire, but they felt it was helpful because they were rewarded with what they feel like are more, positive relationships or more authentic relationships. And what they thought and what they all wanted to impart on me to send out to you is that they learned a lot about Portugal in the listening to the conversations. One was kind of a food bank setup where they would go once a week to kind of get food for homeless or try to help people in the parish that were in need. And it was the side conversations that they were able to glean some really good information about how Portuguese think about politics and life and immigrants and things like that. And they felt like that was a better experience than watching the news, reading the newspaper, frankly, watching any of us do YouTube. That's where once they were able to start contributing, once they started learning more of the language, and they were showing up every week or once a month, and some of them were attending services as well, they just became more, they said it took time. In some cases, one couple reported it took a couple years before people seemed to think that, okay, they're just not going to move to another country, or they're just outsiders, that they started being taken seriously is the wrong word, but being invited to functions, being invited over for meals or a drink, those things. And so the whole point of this video, I didn't want to make it too long, it's already 6 minutes long, is that if you're committed to integration, knowing the language, I think, helps, but it's just scratching the surface. If you want to be committed in Portugal and you want to really get into things, that's a piece of it, but that only helps in certain circumstances. Getting into, let's say, a Portuguese organization or something where you are going to be active in, not just joining, but being active and showing up and helping with things, I think is very important, because these 7 people, they're fully committed to Portugal, and not all of them were going in. It wasn't like they're diving into the deep end and it's Portugal or bust. Many of them were, well, we'll wait and see, and if we learn the language but people aren't talking to us and we can't kind of get into things, or we're not accepted, then we're going to go someplace else where we feel like we can get accepted. But in this case, and I'm not trying to make this a religious video, that's got nothing to do with my channel at all. It just happened to be the area where these people got into different organizations related to the church, which gave them an opportunity to do some community service and work with the community and build some relationships. That's where they found their integration success story, if that's a thing. If you've been able to integrate and you feel comfortable about that and speaking about it, please comment it below, because I think people need to hear it. If there's a lot of stories about you can't integrate in this country, they're just not going to let you in. And that may be true for most people, and I think it probably is true for most people. But if there are some success stories, it's worth noting and saying, how did you get in, quote unquote, in your neighborhood or in your community or in your town or city or village or community, how did you do it? Some success stories to start off the new year would be a good thing. So please comment if you have some. As always, thank you so much for watching, and enjoy your travels.